Sociologist Christopher Bader is the thrice principal investigator for the annual Chapman Survey of American Fears. Americans are afraid of many things: economic collapse, government corruption, world war, polluted drinking water, clowns. In a recent New York Times article, Bader claims that all of our fears stem from uncertainty. For example, we might be afraid of someone walking in our direction on the street because we don't know if they're friendly or not. And from the early morning news to the last evening scan of our iPhones, media reinforces our instinct to protect ourselves from the fear of uncertainty that society instills within us. Bader lays a portion of the blame for our current state of fearfulness on what he calls the erosion of religion. He says, quote, "The major organized religions are rapidly losing members, and what religion can provide is certainty. The Bible is a rule book. Here's what's right, here's what's wrong, here's how you get to heaven, here's how you get to hell. It provides you with a sense of certainty. When you lose that, on a societal level, it can have a big effect, causing us to be afraid." End quote. Well, I'm not sure how much certainty the Bible provides, since people have been arguing about and killing over what it says for thousands of years. And is the purpose of religion to give people certainty or to challenge them to live more compassionate lives? It seems to me that most morality tales in the Bible encourage us to live with each other more humanely. As to Bader's claim that the Bible is a rule book, sure, it contains a titanic number of rules, but they were written for people who lived more than 5,000 years ago. I mean, not eating pork or shellfish made sense in the age before refrigeration and safe food handling rules. Today, following those rules is obedience to a book. For the sake of what? Tradition? I'm not sure I'm a fan. Tradition seems to lock religion into bad habits, allowing some group of people to insist the rest of us cover our heads or bodies or don't eat certain meats and follow Sabbath laws. None of this is bringing us closer to God, but because someone once wrote it down in a book, we listen to it. A book written by and for people who lived in a world so different from ours, they might as well be from Omicron Persei 8. The Bible is not a rule book for all ages. Rather, it contains some of our earliest ideas about how to live as civilized people. And, as we're discovering with our present civilization, often those concepts of who is and isn't part of our society harm and exclude large segments of the population. Realizing the Bible has a historical context and accepting that it often answers questions in a manner we now find unacceptable doesn't create more fear, it frees us from it. Bader also presumes that humans require some central truth to be happy, peaceful, and prosperous. But that is modernist, even classical thinking in a postmodern world. The idea that we require a centralized truth is part of the reason that so many nations are sliding into fascism. Centralized truth is never a good idea, no matter the purveyor. That there is a universal truth, that there can be any certainty about anything, is a vestige of the modern era that ended around 1963. Our Enlightenment-fueled quest to explain everything by reason and logic failed. Worse, reductionism contributed to creating racist, misogynistic, xenophobic societies worldwide. In response, the postmodern movement, which began as a rebuttal to the trap of 17th century Enlightenment thinking, blossomed at the end of the 20th. Since then, 7 generations of postmoderns have been born with an innate rejection of grand narratives and suspicion of certainty and anybody shilling it, which I suppose could be considered a very reasonable position, ironically. Anyway, the new postmodern majority has not rejected religion outright, but they do largely avoid religions that offer certainty and centralized truth narratives, the very type of institution Bader claims was holding together the fabric of society and whose loss is now causing everyone to panic. For thousands and thousands of years, The world's great religions have insisted they alone have concrete answers forever and for everyone about morality, mortality, the afterlife, and God. That's easier to believe when your nearest neighbor lives a week's walk away. In our interconnected 24/7 world, believing in a universal truth narrative only your religion has got right is willfully disingenuous. Believing ours is the only truth has caused much of the bloodshed throughout human history. And the universal truth argument falls apart when a quick internet search reveals 44,000 Christian denominations amongst thousands of world religions. Learning that factoid quickly vanquishes the idea that any religion holds some definitive truth. Instead, we see that there are no specific answers. There is no grand narrative, just a lot of opinions we've turned into creeds, dogmas, and denominations. The postmoderns are resculpting all that old-time religion into a more mature, robust, discussion and social justice-oriented philosophical discourse in which there are no certain answers. There isn't a preacher in a pulpit telling you why you're going to hell or insisting everyone must believe in Jesus or salvation or anything. We know exponentially more about the universe and how things work than our biblical ancestors, and this provides us with a more metaphysical way to learn from Jesus and his teachings. Jesus taught his disciples that they were God's heirs and that we are all co-creators in the consciousness of God. He taught by asking questions and challenging his students and religious and political leaders to think about their world and the cosmos in ways that were outrageous for the era and that even today we have a hard time comprehending. Still, our postmodern understanding of God is a consciousness of endless creativity. With as much certainty as possible, we know that everything we can see, smell, taste, touch, and hear evolved over billions of years from some initial source that exploded into physical reality. Now, something that people might not know about creatives and creativity is that we go over our work again and again and again and again. Nothing is ever finished. I mean, even after it's released, it's not done. I work on these presentations and essays not only until I deliver them on Sunday, but also the Monday after before I publish them. I've got songs I've been reworking for years. Painters paint over masterpieces to create new ones. Composers and filmmakers edit and re-edit, often leaving entire inspired, compelling passages on the cutting room floor. The difference between the theatrical and director's cut of some films is astounding. If you're creative, you are always creative, often going over the same material a million times, reshaping it, adjusting things, tweaking, destroying it entirely, possibly, and starting all over. I am unsure of a great many things, but I suspect that whatever's behind the creation and evolution of the universe is a meticulous creator. And so we should expect frequent change and embrace it, not be afraid of it. Change is proof of God's movement in the world, and impermanence is the way of the universe. That knowledge is a freeing epiphany. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is certain. Anything can change at any time, and likely will. And that gives me hope, because that means that no matter what, I remain in God's presence. Of that, I'm certain. Amen. Our question for consideration today is, how does your faith make room for uncertainty? How does your faith make room for uncertainty? Let's go into